Hello class, this is both lesson 7-3 and 7-4 about elimination. And what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to vertically eliminate one variable. And we're going to do this through either addition, subtraction, and or multiplication. To begin this process, you want to have both equations vertically aligned. And now we're looking for one variable that has the same coefficients or the opposite coefficients. For instance, both of my y's have 5 and -5. So that is the variable in this scenario that I want to eliminate. So I'm going to focus on just adding these two equations going straight down to eliminate my y's. So 3x plus 5x is 8x, and the y's cancel out, and 11 plus 5 is 16. Now I can go ahead and solve. Divide both sides by 8, and x is equal to 2. Now I'm going to take that, and I'm going to plug it into either one of my equations. So I'll plug it into my first equation. 3 times 2 plus 5y is equal to 11. And now we'll solve for y. So this is 6 plus 5y is equal to 11. I could subtract both sides by 6. I'm left with 5y is equal to 5. When I divide both sides by 5, I find that y is equal to 1. And so this tells us that our solution is the point 2, 1. So now let's go ahead and repeat this process with our second set of equations. And I see that the x's have a 5 and a -5 for their coefficients. So I'm going to add those two equations going straight down to eliminate my x's. And that leaves me with 10y is equal to 50. I could divide both sides by 10 and find that y is equal to 5. Like we've been doing, let's go ahead and plug it into one of our equations. I'll choose the second one this time. So -5x minus 3 times 5 is equal to 30. And -5x minus 15 equals 30. Let's go ahead and add 15 to both sides. And that leaves us with -5x is equal to 45. Let's divide both sides by -5 to wrap it up. And we find that x is equal to -9. So that tells us that our solution is -9, 5. All right, let's go ahead and look at some more. This time, I'm looking and I have the y's that both have a 6 for their coefficient. And since they're not positive and negative, that means we need to subtract one of our equations. So I'm going to subtract the bottom one. So 3x minus 5x is -2x. 6y minus 6y is nothing. And 30 minus 6 is 24. Now we can divide both sides by -2, and we find that x is equal to -12. All right, so we have our x. Let's go ahead and plug it into our top equation. 3 times -12 plus 6y is equal to 30. That's -36 plus 6y is equal to 30. I'm going to add 36 to both sides. 6y is now equal to 66. And when I divide both sides by 6, I find that y is equal to 11. All right, so this gives us our point of -12, 11, and we are done with this equation. Moving on to our next example, again, I see that it is the y variables that have the same coefficient. They're both positive, so I'm going to subtract my bottom row. So when I do that, I have -2x minus 7x is -9x, and the y's cancel out, and 48 minus 21 is 27. I can divide both sides by -9, and y is equal to -3. So I'm going to plug it into one of my equations. I'll do the second one. So 7 times -3 plus 3y is equal to 21. That's -21. And then I'm going to add 21 to both sides. That leaves me with 3y is equal to 42. When I divide both sides by 3, my final answer for y is equal to 14. So this gives us the point of -3, 14. So far, the equations that we've had have been pretty simple of just straight addition or subtraction. But now look at these two equations. None of the coefficients match. So we need to look closely and try to still eliminate one of our variables. And I'm going to do this by simple multiplication. So I can either multiply the bottom row by 2, and that would give me 10x on the top and 10x on the bottom, so I could eliminate the x's. Or I could try to eliminate the y's, which would be a little bit more work because I would need to multiply the top row by 3 and the bottom row by 5 so that they both have 15 or negative 15 as their coefficients. So I think I'm going to go the simpler route and just multiply the bottom row by 2. When I do that, I have 10x plus 5y equals 30. That still doesn't change. The bottom row is now 10x minus 6y is equal to negative 14. And I'm going to have to subtract the bottom row. So 10x minus 10x is nothing. 5y minus 6y is 11y. And 30 minus negative 14 is positive 44. Now I can divide both sides by 11, and I find that y is equal to 4. So now let's take our y value and plug it into maybe our top equation. So 10x plus 5 times 4 is equal to 30. And that rewrites as 10x plus 20 is equal to 30. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. That leaves me with 10x is equal to 10. When I divide by 10, I'm left with x is equal to 1. And this gives us the solution of 1, 4. All right, let's move on. In our next example, our two equations, the x coefficients are 13 and 4, and the y coefficients are 14 and 7. So I think I'm going to focus on eliminating the y by multiplying by 2. And that leaves me with 13x plus 14y is equal to 59. That didn't change. But then I have 8x plus 14y is equal to 74. So I have my 14y's, but they're both positive, so I need to subtract my bottom row. 13x minus 8x is 5x. And then 59 minus 74 is negative 15. Let's divide by 5 so that x is equal to negative 3. Now that I have the x, let's plug it in, maybe into our bottom equation. So 8 times negative 3 plus 14y is equal to 74, which is negative 24 plus 14y is equal to 74. I'm going to add 24 to both sides to get the y alone. So 14y is equal to 98. And then I'll finish off by dividing by 14 on both sides, and y is equal to 7. So my solution is found at negative 3, 7, and that's it. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to our final two examples. And I want you to notice now that my first example, the x coefficients are 3 and negative 2. The y coefficients are 4 and 3. So there's not an easy way to only multiply one row to eliminate one of the variables. I'm going to have to actually end up multiplying both rows. And so what I like to do is I like to look to see, is there already a variable that has opposite signs? That's the variable I'm going to focus on. So in this example, that would be the x variable. And so I'm going to multiply my top row by 2, and I'm going to multiply my bottom row by 3, and that's going to leave me with 6x plus 8y is equal to negative 44. And then my bottom row is negative 6x plus 9y is equal to negative 24. I can now go ahead and combine both rows just by adding straight down, and that leaves me with 17y is equal to negative 68. I'll divide both sides by 17, and y is equal to negative 4. And now, like I've been doing, I can pick either equation to plug it into, and I'm going to actually go all the way to the top, and I'm going to plug it into my original equation. So negative 2x plus 3 times negative 4 is equal to negative 8, and that's really minus 12. So I'm going to go ahead and add 12 to both sides. That leaves me with negative 2x is equal to positive 4. And I can divide both sides by negative 2, and I find that x is equal to negative 2. So here we go. Our solution then is negative 2 comma negative 4. All right, so we have one final example. And again, none of my coefficients are easy. I have 11 and 3, or I have negative 6 and positive 9. So that's what I'm going to focus on, is eliminating the y's. I can turn them both into 18. So I'll multiply my top row by 3 and my bottom row by 2. So this turns into 33x minus 18y is equal to 75. And then 6x plus 18y is equal to 120. And now I can just add straight down, so that's 39x is equal to 195. When I divide both sides by 39, I find that x is equal to 5. And now, like I've been doing, I can plug it into any of my equations. So I'm going to use my top equation, so 3 times 5 plus 9y is equal to 60. And that leaves me with 15 plus 9y is equal to 60. I'm going to subtract 15 on both sides. So then 9y is equal to 45. When I divide both sides by 9, I find that y is equal to 5. And that gives me my solution at the point of 5 comma 5. And that's it. So hopefully this lesson made sense to you. It was covering 2 lessons in our book, but I think you guys will have a good understanding of it. But as always, please let me know if you have any questions when you come into class.